Creative Babble.
In the summer of 1994, 4 teens entered an abandoned building in Gravesend, Brooklyn. It was the last time they would be seen alive. With few clues and no witnesses, the case went cold. But for Anthony Brewer, the brother of one of the victims, the search never stopped. In 2024, he acquired evidence from the police that contained DNA samples that didn't match the teens. That discovery put his life and the life of his family in grave danger. Goosebumps, The Vanishing. All episodes available January 10th on Disney Plus and Hulu on disneyplus.disney.com. Rated TV 14 LV.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I'm Javier Leiva with the Pretend podcast.
I'm Whitney St. Andre with Navigating Advocacy.
And I'm Amanda Jacobson with Whining Crime.
And if you don't recognize some of these voices, it's because we are 3 badass podcasts simulcasting on our own feeds to tell you about our show and kind of go behind the scenes to see how we put all these crazy shows together. And for some of you who don't know, the podcast community, especially the indie true crime podcast community, is a very, very tight-knit group.
It is, especially if you know Josh Hallmark, who was the brilliant mind behind this idea to hook us all up together and have us all meet both in person over the years and now virtually and do a fun little like true crime conversation crossover hangout.
Yeah, Josh is really the glue or the thread that ties us all together.
Yes.
He's just so amazing.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
And Josh, he's at the top. A lot of people just don't realize that all these true crime podcasts, they're being, like the puppet master. Josh.
That's accurate. He did tell me I have to find 4 people to like complete my tier and then have them find 4 people. Josh, I had no idea you were MLMing us.
I know.
I am a proud owner of a pair of LuLaRoe leggings, I will say, but I bought them secondhand, so
Then it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count. Did you watch that documentary, Lula Rich?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Every time I watch a documentary about a con artist like that, I'm like, I wish
I
would have done it
it
first. Yeah,
I love it. Did you watch Chimp Crazy on
No,
HBO?
but I want to. Yeah.
Yes.
It looks like Tiger King 2.
It is. Whitney.
Hold on. Have you recently watched The Kings of Tupelo?
No.
Oh, I've heard it's good.
It's on Netflix, and it is just as unhinged as Tiger King.
Really?
Well,
You're the second person to recommend that, so now I gotta watch it. Yeah.
It's only 3 episodes, so it's a quick binge. But yeah.
Well, let's
with
fucking
Elvis
wrap this up
impersonators.
so I can go to what?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
we gotta
Awesome.
watch that.
Okay, well, good. I have the rest of my day scheduled.
So today, what we want to do is really talk about our origin stories, because these are 3 very different shows, and with different audiences. And I think you guys are going to love to find out what all these podcasts are about. So why don't we just start with Whitney? Tell me a little bit about your show, because your show, Navigating Advocacy, that's not what your show was about at the beginning, right? So how has your show evolved since you started the whole thing?
Well, we started as your typical true crime podcast. In the pandemic, we had nothing to do, but my family isolated, my best friend and co-host Melissa, her family isolated, but we cheated the system a little bit where we'd have Wednesday family dinners and all 8 of us would get together. We both have boys, 2 boys each from now 18 to 9. And so it was just a lot of chaos all the time. Well, in the pandemic, we'd get together. Melissa and I would sit at the dinner table and talk about all the things we'd listened to, we read, all those things. And in full transparency and honesty, we would day drink sometimes.
Oh,
and
hell yeah. Hi, Whining Crime here. Let's go.
Yep. I wanted to I talked Melissa into recording our conversations at one point and said, why don't we just do our own podcast? If we're listening, let's just record what we're talking about anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And she is an introvert. She was really hesitant, but that day drinking really helped me out there. So we created Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet. That used to be our name.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered everything from cults to serial killers to suspicious deaths. Anything that caught our attention, we were covering. And both of us are volunteer-based people. So if there's something that needs to be done, we're the first people to sign up for it. So we reached out to a family in West Texas. It's in San Angelo, Texas, the Brandon Lawson's family, and wanted to go out and see where this man went missing. Because if you listen to Brandon's story on most podcasts, they talk about him disappearing in woods. And there's not a lot of places in Texas that have true woods. I mean, there's like mesquite trees and cacti, and it's not
wide
woods.
open spaces.
Exactly. So we wanted to see what they were talking about. And West Texas is a lot of desert, so it didn't make sense to me. So we went out there, and being on that site and meeting with the families, it really shifted the way we started consuming true crime and the way we started working with families. And it was an evolution. Like, we just learned what we were doing wasn't right, or we felt it wasn't right anymore because of the volunteer aspect of what we do. So we rebranded. And it took a little while for us because we really loved our name. I'm a sucker for a good alliteration, you know?
Yeah.
And we decided to rebrand. That's when we became Navigating Advocacy, because we're still learning. We're trying to learn the proper ways to do things, or ways to help in other ways, and learning about language. And it's just this constant flow of education. And that's kind of where we're at now.
That's such a cool thing about podcasting in general, is that, you know, that's your baby. It evolves as you evolve as people. And, you know, the podcasts that see some of the most success are the ones that bring your unique, authentic selves into the show. And, you know, human beings are complex, and we have the capacity to change and to learn and to grow. And it's really, really cool to see your show like reflecting that process along with you in real time. I think that that's such a cool thing to model to the people that listen as well, that like at any point you can shift directions, you can shift gears, you can get passionate about different things, you can find what connects with you deeply and like follow that pull. I think that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to. If you don't if you don't feel that way, it's okay too. This is just our journey that we're sharing with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that the true crime landscape has changed so much.
A lot.
What years did you guys start? I started in
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
2017.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we launched right after the first you-know-who win of the election.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And our show, Wine and Crime, was very much like a response to everything is garbage and our mental health is in the shitter. And guess what? Still is, babes. But I mean, yeah, it's very similar, Whitney, where it's like best friends with a shared interest and a love of a little bit of boozing, and just diving into stories that, as consumers of true crime, we wanted to focus on short form. We're not serialized. We know our limits and our skill set. My skill set is finding a story that I connect with, whether there is maybe a humorous connection, because we're true crime comedy, which is like kind of a weird thing to navigate and doesn't necessarily feel like they go together, and has been a line to toe that is not always easy. But where we bring in the comedy is really about ourselves and like sharing our stories. And you know, you'll be surprised at how many times you can connect to either, of course, a victim, but also like a perpetrator in some instances, or some, you know, element of what you're talking about. And that's where we kind of bring the comedy in, or just find like these absurd stories that...
Well, it's the levity, right?
Yes.
It's such a heavy topic.
It's such a heavy topic, and we launched at such a heavy time, and then history just continues to repeat itself, that we really wanted to connect over like these weird police blotters and weird articles that people send us, and talk about them without making the long form investment that other phenomenal shows have made. So we're not serialized. We do everything kind of episodic under a theme. So we've covered really anything that you can think of, and it's really been a wild journey and very fun.
It's kind of interesting because this started off as a hobby for me, like something that I was doing on the weeknights, like if my kid was in a game or like sporting thing or on the weekend, and now it's become my full-time job.
Right.
And it is so crazy to see that transformation. I'm sure.
When did that shift, like how far in did that shift happen for each of you?
It happened like 3 weeks ago for me.
Congratulations.
I know, but it wasn't completely voluntary. I had a full-time job and that came to an end. And now
that was Lucy's journey. We all had full-time jobs and Lucy was actually laid off a few years into the show. Yeah. And it aligned with, the show picking up some good momentum and we were able to shift. But like, that is a scary plunge to take. I left my job.
I was just laid off. Like,
it happens.
It was crazy. Yeah. But this is like go time, like it's now or never. And there's so much momentum. And we have all built this great community of, our listeners are very loyal and committed. And why not? Let's make this thing go, Like,
what about you, Whitney? When did that shift for y'all?
We shifted to full-time podcasters probably a year and a half in. Now, to be fair, we have super supportive husbands that allow us to do this. It's not that we've turned it into a full-time career, meaning salaries are available. Right. But we were able to really transition into making this our full-time passion about a year and a half in.
That's so exciting. It's awesome. But it really is like, it is a scary plunge. And I feel like we get questions a lot all the time from people who listen to the show and are exploring podcasting for themselves. And Lucy and I often, we have like two things that we will typically say. One is don't do it.
I know. I always tell people not to do it.
But, that's kind of like my joke response. I think that if you are passionate about something and you feel like your voice will lend something to that arena, then like, fuck yeah, do it, go for it. But if you are building it, if you're making your plan to make money, to have it be your full-time job, it's really, really, really hard. And
it can happen, but
it can happen.
You're going to spend years trying to make it happen.
Wine and Crime was just us, the hosts, for the first 4 or 5 years of the show while we were pounding the pavement, building the advertising base, and we're still independent. Now we do have help with our ad sales, but like we were doing all of that in-house, all of the social media, all of the editing. I mean, and we were also working. So it was a true labor of love. And now we're in a place all of these years later where we do have, we're a company, we have a small staff. We're able to pay ourselves and our team and like provide health insurance and some benefits. Awesome. Yeah. And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm saying it because it's rare and it's hard and it's terrifying, because then you get to a space where it's like, okay, I'm counting on me. My husband is counting on me.
But now all these
my staff is counting on me.
Yeah.
So the pressure is different.
The pressure is different. And so if you are thinking about podcasting, we encourage you not to enter that space with like a financial gain mindset.
You're putting a lot more work into it than you're getting back. And that's what, and nobody likes commercials. Like I don't like commercials. But
I don't either.
But, and the fact that some of our patrons are helping us out, like there's a lot of work that goes into this. Like you said, all these things that we like. For me, one new cost that I was not expecting is like unprecedented legal bills. Like these things,
my God.
I'm just saying these things don't come for free, and like we're doing this full time, and so there's a lot of work that comes into this, and like ads, they help. So when we were kind of planning this episode, we were coming up with these fun things to talk about, and we have this magical list of like prompts for us. So I say let's kick it off. Let's do one. I think one that really resonated for us was this idea of memorable first. Like, what is the first case that truly kept you up at night?
Oof.
Like, which is the one that haunts you? Because we've all been there, right? Where you're like you said, Amanda, last night you were just staring at the ceiling, right?
Yo. Whitney, go first because I need
I got
time.
one. I got one too. If you
Javier,
don't have
you
one.
go first this time. You go first this time, Javier.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that one, and I remember I was I did the series called The Pest, and it was about these gang stalkers. This one guy went on Twitter and he said that he did not think Norm Macdonald was funny.
Whoa, hot take.
I know it's like a hot take, but it shouldn't.
That's pretty benign.
Snowball.
No.
Yeah, it snowballed into this crazy gang stalking scenario where all these people were like dogging this guy, but then it turned into like they were doxing him.
Oh no.
Then they were they sent the police to his house 40 times. They swatted his house 40 times.
Oh my God.
So he would be woken up at night with guns pointed to his head. I mean, like this was like, it just went so crazy, and these people were so scary. And so I put together these 3 episodes about the pests, and my wife and I were like, I don't think we should release these because
what if
these
you
people
become
are
a
really
target?
scary. We don't. Right, exactly. And so I was like, well, what if I just put it out on Patreon? Like they'll never find it, right? So I release it on Patreon, and I go on vacation, and I decided that I was just not going to check my phone all the time.
Good
And
for
then
you.
I snuck a peek, and I realized that the pests found the episodes on Patreon. They ripped it, they put it on their dark web forum, and all hell broke loose. And I had that sinking feeling that like, oh shit, you know.
Did anything happen, or were
No,
you guys
actually,
okay?
the pests really liked my reporting, and
All
they thought
right.
it was great.
Okay.
So crisis averted.
That
So like
is-
best case scenario there.
I know, but I was really sweating that one.
That's
But-
fucking terrifying. And I mean, you've got a family.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, and you're not just dealing with one person. You're dealing with like
A
a
group.
bunch of anonymized like people that just have an axe to grind. So yeah, that was probably and I've done some pretty scary stuff, but I mean, I've been in a cult and all that, but like for some reason, that's the one that really freaked me out.
We're gonna circle back to I've
We'll
been
come
in a
back to
cult.
that. Well,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
for a day, not
Just
not
to
a
get
whole-
research.
He just infiltrated, you know.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Okay,
So
well,
what about you, Whitney?
Put a
What-
pin in that.
Yeah. well,
So this question was really hard for me because I grew up watching wildly inappropriate things like most of us did that were born in the 80s and 90s. I don't know. I don't want to age anyone here, but I was born in the 80s, so I'm pretty
Same.
old.
same.
We didn't really have rules when it came to like what stuff we consumed. So I watched like the movie Seven at I want to say like
Oh,
8,
yeah.
9 years old, like
Mhm.
wildly inappropriate.
Mhm.
And none of that kind of stuff kept me up at night. It didn't give me nightmares or anything like that. So when I transitioned into this world of true crime, there hasn't been one specific case that keeps me up at night.
Mhm.
I'm really good at compartmentalizing the information, but I will stay up for thinking I've disappointed someone with the story I've told. I
Mhm.
worry a lot about disappointing family members that we work with because this whole season we're exclusively working with family members on episodes. I'm worried about putting out misinformation, like all of the strange
Yeah.
things related to true crime as opposed to the actual details of a story. That's what keeps me up at night is
Mhm.
disappointing
Getting
someone.
it right. Yeah.
Right.
There are 2 for me. One I covered on our show, and it's something that I'm also very passionate about is I'm an abolitionist, and so cases that include police violence and like the targeting of Black and brown people really fuck me up. And we unfortunately, Minneapolis is where I live, and so Philando Castile for many years was kind of a household name, and then George Floyd became a household name, and real faces to a revolution toward collective liberation. But I covered the Philando Castile case, and this was a man who was driving with his girlfriend and their baby in the car. He was like a school lunch employee. He was just like a lovely person. They got pulled over for a taillight. He declared that he had his conceal and carry, that he had a weapon in the car. Like, he followed every rule. And the officer opened fire on him while he was sitting in the car getting his wallet, as he was asked to do to produce ID. And he died in front of his girlfriend and child. And his girlfriend, in a moment of power and quick thinking, opened her Facebook and started live streaming what was happening. And without her act of bravery, the police could easily just own the narrative of what had happened there. And as they often do, spun any reality that they saw fit.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
But going back to your body cam and Facebook Live comment, I mean, I think that technology has changed so rapidly, and it's changed the way that we cover stories, because now, as when I worked in news, police didn't wear a body cam. I mean, we didn't even have Facebook, I don't think. Maybe we did, but there was definitely no like live option. Everything that if I wanted to go live, I needed like a big microwave truck with a big pole and stuff like that. So like the fact that citizens can now broadcast to the world like instantly, or I as a journalist could request the body cameras, it just changes the dynamics of storytelling, but also about the way police approach scenes and the way they react to things. So I just think it's really interesting the way that technology has not only changed law enforcement, but the way we cover things as independent, journalists.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
wild.
those kinds of developments are really, really fascinating to follow and to see happening.
Yeah. We're going to take a short break. And after the break, we're going to discuss some more fun topics. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Hey, music fans. There are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Atlanta. Zach Brown Band at State Farm Arena. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. And Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com.
When we started coming up with this idea of collaborating, we came up with a bunch of fun prompts, and one of them I thought was pretty hard. If I had unlimited resources, so if you had a full investigative team with an unlimited budget, what cold case or unsolved mystery would you tackle first? And I really struggled with this one. I mean, my first thought was DB Cooper, because like everybody's looking for DB Cooper.
Yeah.
But I'm not so interested in DB Cooper personally. I don't know why. Because I interviewed a hijacker who actually jumped out of the plane with the cash and actually survived to live to tell the story. And I thought that was way more interesting than DB Cooper, who...
Yeah.
So I'm not so interested in DB Cooper. But if I had to pick, I think I would go to a story I covered extensively, which was the case of Frank Abagnale Jr. He's the guy from Catch Me If You Can. So for those of you who don't know, Frank Abagnale Jr. lied about his life story. He never really did the things he said he did. He
One
was
of
never
the most successful con artists of all time.
I know, it's very meta because he's still a con artist, except he's
but
just
he works
not the
for
con
the government.
artist. Right, he does not work for the government. That's a lie too.
It is?
Yes, the whole thing is a lie. It's all a lie. Yeah, he was never. He did dress up as a pilot and got some free flights, but he was never a lawyer. He was never a doctor. He never worked for the FBI. He was never a professor. It's all a lie. He's built this like decades long career.
I can't believe I'm still getting duped by that motherfucker all these years later.
We all are.
What the fuck? I really thought that consulting thing after his arrest and imprisonment was
bullshit.
real.
He says he works at the FBI Academy teaching ethics. It's all bullshit.
Gosh, Amanda, listen to Pretend. You would know this.
I am the worst.
Okay.
I'm also so gullible. You can tell me anything and I'd be like, wow.
Me too, yeah. But podcasters don't listen to other podcasts.
We don't have time and we don't commute.
And why would we? Like, we marinate in all this dark stuff. Like, why would we want to listen to more true crime? But the reason why I picked this one, because I thought, to me, it's a little bit of an unsolved case, because if he wasn't a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, a professor, or working for the FBI, then what the heck was he doing?
Right.
And we kind of found out some of the things that he was doing during that time period, like scamming doctors and realtors with these investment scams. But there's like 20 to 30 years that like we would love to fill in the gaps, because this guy was definitely a con artist. He was definitely fooling people. It's just not the con artist that we thought he was.
Wow.
You know?
I'm shook.
Yeah. Mind
Tom
blown.
Hanks and Leo DiCaprio lied to me.
I know. And Steven Spielberg, don't forget him.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure they knew that's the worst part. I'm sure that Hollywood knew that it was all baloney, and
they have to tell the most interesting version. I mean, the movie is fucking great. It's a phenomenal movie.
I get shit on a daily basis about this. They're like, dude, it was a movie. Of course they made some things up. I'm like, no. They made the whole thing up.
Right.
Like it wasn't even based on a true story. It was based on
the
some
lies
man's
he told.
fantasy.
Yeah,
exactly.
What about yours, Whitney?
I can't pick a single case. That's my problem, is if we have an unlimited budget, I want to go big and take every piece of DNA that's out there and test every single piece of DNA out there, use the technology of today and solve them all. I can't narrow it down to one, because give me an unlimited budget and I'm going to spend it.
Yeah. That's
right.
super fair.
Yeah.
I am such a child of the 80s that mine will always, like, my knee-jerk reaction to this question will always be JonBenet Ramsey.
Yeah.
That's
your Roman Empire, right?
It's kind of my Roman Empire. And like, I think that younger folks, younger listeners who were not kids or teens or preteens in the late 80s, early 90s, media frenzy still exists very much now, but like tabloids were at their peak of like problematic existence when we were that age. And so when I tell you this little girl was plastered on every magazine, in every supermarket, on every TV channel, you could not escape the image of JonBenet Ramsey. And even in that story still is very captivating to audiences today. I mean, we just got 2 new JonBenet Ramsey documentary series that just came out, and you know, I don't want to get sued, so I'm not going to go too deep into my theories, but like, it's a weird case. It was botched by investigators from the very beginning. The DNA was fucked. Everything was muddied. The crime scene was not handled properly at all. And it's one of those cases where it's like, this is a family that does have unlimited resources, and we still don't fucking know. We still don't fucking know. And how important that handling of evidence and chain of command, and, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a small town and the cops know the family. It doesn't fucking matter. You have to treat those crime scenes with the utmost care and vigilance, because that is, in my opinion, the most critical moment, is that first assessment of a crime scene and that collection of evidence. And as we can see with the JonBenet Ramsey case, if you don't collect it properly, it really doesn't matter how much money and unlimited resources you have. If the evidence isn't there, you're fucked.
Right. Those first hours are so critical to making sure that the case goes right. I mean, imagine like a lot of law enforcement. I've worked on cases where I don't know if they ever said this, but they kind of assume it was a suicide. You know, you can't assume it's a suicide, because if you go in with that mindset, then you're missing out on any potential clues, and you can never recreate that. I mean, that you could try, but we know that blood spatter sometimes is considered, could be junk science too. You know, like things aren't, you could replicate it, but nothing will replace the evidence that's at the scene.
And I mean, even DNA is not like the smoking gun that the true crime, you know, especially documentaries have made it out to be.
I'm working on a story right now because, you know, you would think that DNA is ironclad. Right. I mean, you can't, you know, you can't fake DNA, but now I'm working on a case of these DNA experts that have been either manipulating the data, excluding other DNA evidence. And it's amazing. I thought it was just this one woman who was accused of doing that. And then the more I look into it, I mean, this is like a problem.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't quote unquote fake DNA, but you can withhold it. You can manipulate it. You can improperly collect it. You can like, there's room for not only just human error, which, you know, even investigators are people with preconceived biases and ideas and thought processes that are going to guide an investigation. It is what it is. But yeah, even in the labs, like shit can fucking happen. And there are bad actors in there too.
Well, and if you have a conclusion in mind and you have some DNA and then you have other DNA, but you only want, you know, to show this DNA because it's more convenient for the case, I mean, that creates a problem. To me, it never occurred to me that DNA could be also subjective.
1,000%. And that, to your point, is a problem in so many cases where like the investigators or whatever team is working on this has, you know, their version of events. And instead of letting the evidence guide them toward the conclusion, they want to use the evidence to fit the narrative that they are connected to. And we all do that. I mean, we speculate in our show all the time and like bend over backwards to try to make certain things align that might not align. But like, we're also very clear that we're not journalists and that we're speculating wildly and it's a very hypothetical, like maybe it was this. We're not the ones that are fucking in the trenches, like trying to solve these crimes.
Right.
So, but that kind of process happens in a lot of investigations. At first glance, this is what we think happens. So we're going to try to find the pieces that fit that rather than let's look at the puzzle and let the puzzle fit together and then come to a conclusion. It's kind of a backwards way that we investigate crime, certainly in the US.
Yeah. So let's get on to our next topic, which is controversial cases. Are there any cases where you've had a change of heart or perspective after researching and even releasing your episodes?
Yes.
All right. Go. Hit us, Amanda.
Okay. Michael Peterson and his wife, Kathleen.
The staircase, right?
The staircase. Lucy, co-host of Wine and Crime, has a show on our subscriber platform called Spooky Little Bitch. And she has always been a skeptic on whether Michael Peterson did kill his wife. And I had always been like, he did it.
He did it? Yeah.
Dude's a creep. You're never going to change my mind. And she did an interview on an episode of Spooky Little Bitch with someone who is an expert in like forensics, but also specifically birds.
Owls?
And he talked a lot about the owl theory, which I had always laughed at, thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And after listening to that interview, I am no longer convinced that it wasn't an owl. I mean, there's evidence that they didn't include. There's bird poop. There was feathers. There was all kinds of shit that was actually like consistent with an owl attack.
Amanda, I'm with you on this one. So, you know, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Actually, technically not even Raleigh. I live in between Raleigh and Durham. And this case takes place in Durham. Yeah. And in my backyard, we have a bunch of owls. I mean, I see them all the time. We're eating dinner and they're like swooping by. One day, and I love owls.
Of course.
I love owls. Like they even had the little baby owls. They go on the trampoline. They're super cute. Really awesome. But one day I'm like in the back porch, you know, just sitting there with my daughter, and there was this owl staring at us. And it wasn't going hoo 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 hoo. It was going like I had never heard that sound before. And then it flapped its wing and flew close to us.
Nope.
Like intimidating us. And we're
Nope.
like, I told my daughter, I was like, get up. Let's walk very quietly
We're
inside
going
the
inside.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
that
fuck with
freaked us
birds.
out. And I all of a sudden that owl theory makes a little bit of sense. I don't know.
Honestly, like, I'm going to send you the file for this interview because I was fucking blown away by the stuff that this guy pointed out that had been not
There's
included
like micro
in
feathers.
Oh yeah,
right?
not
Yeah.
included in the like overall, evidence write up of things that were not put in any of the documentaries or coverage on this case. I mean, obviously we know that so much documentary coverage is biased. It's just that it is what it is. I mean, even in our own shows, like we bring our
Right.
theories and biases into
Right.
our productions as well.
not
We're
giving you
human.
Everything. Yeah.
But damn, I mean, I was like, there's no way you're going to convince me
That's
that
such
this
a
was a
great
fucking
example
owl.
too.
Holy
it's
shit.
such a controversial
So
true crime topic.
It's so
you know?
polarizing. It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
polarizing. I'm like, at
Yeah,
me.
I bet
don't
our
give a
listeners
fuck.
are like,
I know. Amanda's a Michael Peterson sympathizer. Yep. I famously hate women, and
Yep.
he didn't do it. Pull that clip out of context and
Right.
start and make me go viral. Let's fucking go.
Oh, look, the
Cancel
Reddit
me.
thread. There's a Reddit thread
Oh,
already.
there always is.
Oh man, how about you, Whitney? Do you have one?
Well, there's one
Controversial
that we
things?
covered. It's not really controversial because not many people have covered it. But after researching it, we had done a story about a woman in a small town in Arkansas. She was a woman of color. She had a child with a white man who was married to another person. This all came out after her murder, but her mother was murdered, and they tried to blame the murder on a lesbian couple, one of which was a woman of color that we know of. The other woman may have been a woman of color also, but we're not sure of that. But all the media coverage of it pointed to the fact that this couple was responsible for it's a super brutal murder, and her 3-year-old daughter found her. But we worked with the daughter, and we sent her our full episode, recorded it, everything we found research wise that's out there. And she's like, you got this all wrong. Let me send you what I have. And the media was way wrong. I mean, like, this woman got convicted. She was then later exonerated of it, and all the charges were dropped against her. But the second woman in the relationship was never charged at all because they didn't have evidence. And it was all based off of planted evidence, and this murder weapon had been lost and then refound and retested and all kinds of crazy things like that. So that was a case for us that was particularly eye-opening about basically checking your sources, because just because
Yeah.
it's in the news does not mean anything.
Right.
And we've all seen that happen. I mean, that's the danger with us in the podcasting world, is that, I do a lot of investigations, first person accounts, that kind of stuff, but not all my stories are like that, right? Like sometimes I'm relying on articles that are being written about it, and if somebody gets the story wrong from the beginning, it has this snowball effect, because then somebody else picks it up and somebody else picks it up, and then it becomes true even though it's not, right? And so that is, like, when you said, Whitney, I think you said earlier that getting it wrong keeps you up at night. I mean, yeah, that keeps me up at night too, because there's so many ways that we could get the information wrong if we're not getting it firsthand, right? From the
Yeah,
actual
and that's
source.
part of why I think the wine and crime format in this context does work, because again, we're not investigative. So we are just pulling from the resources that are available to us on the internet, like newspapers.com is our best friend. But because the show is so conversational, we have the opportunity to flag, like, I read this in this article, I don't know if I agree with this, and then have that conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Shit pisses me off.
Yeah, it's crazy how, I mean, sometimes as consumers of these documentaries or news in general, we don't have the time to research and like go, and fact check everything that we've seen. Sometimes we have to like trust that some of this information is true, and boy, like a lot of people either is cherry picked or they just like skew the details to the point where like it's not even true anymore. But I was thinking about the controversial cases. I think about one where I was personally duped, because I don't see myself so much as a victim's advocate, because I try not to take, a side. I try to report things as neutral as possible. But there was this one case that I was working on, and it was about this like middle-aged couple. They were like the salt of the earth. They were religious, you know, this and that. And they said that they were the victims of the stalker, that their doctor's husband was stalking them and sending all these messages and, you know, the swatting, just like the case I had told you before. And these people had been stalked and harassed for 2 years straight. And I believed them. Like they gave me no reason not to believe them. And then it all changed when I realized during the course of my investigation that the IP addresses for some of these harassing messages was coming from their own house.
The call was literally coming from inside the house.
Someone in that house was sending these messages. Like, and it could have been the mom, it could have been the dad, it could have been one of the adult kids. It was but I felt so betrayed, you know, because I actually spent 2 years before I ever broadcast, like, or dropped the episode. I spent 2 years investigating this case, and I felt duped. And you could hear that during the course of my reporting, because it starts off like, hey, we got to find this guy you know, bring him to justice and all this stuff. And then during the course of the investigation, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me?
What season is that? I need to go back and listen to those episodes.
It's called The Stalker.
Okay.
Oh my God, I should know this. I want to say season 13.
Okay. I mean, if you search Pretend The Stalker.
The Stalker.
You'll find
I don't
it.
remember my own show. I kind of deleted.
We have hundreds of fucking episodes. People are always like, do you remember when the gal said this on this episode?
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all, no.
Delete.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast. I have no idea what I say the second after I've said it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're episodic too. So I'm like, no, I don't remember what we covered in season 2. Like, let me go to my list.
Oh, it's season 12, guys. Season 12.
All right, The Stalker in season 12. All right.
Season 12. Yeah.
I cannot.
But yeah, that one sucked.
You put so much.
Well, it made for an interesting story though, because
it did, and you solved it.
Well, yeah, they ended up getting arrested and charged with 6 felonies after, like, so before I released the series, I sent it to the detective working the case.
Yeah.
And like 3 days later, a grand jury met and they got arrested, and it's all crazy. I know, it was nuts.
But it is hard. I mean, another part of the reason why I personally, in my true crime podcasting journey, shy away from that direct connection,
right,
is because I am like terminally empathetic and I get very connected very quickly. And the betrayal that you felt from like covering this story and being so deeply invested in helping this family and then discovering that like it was them all along. Nope, that would be like my last season of podcasting. I'm fucking done. My mental health cannot.
That teaches you to separate yourself a little bit from the subjects, because I've learned that, and all of us bring different perspective, right? Like, so Whitney's thing and her whole thing is, you know, victim advocacy, right? Like for me, I can't do that, because sometimes in my experience, the victims, even though they mean very well, they see the story just from one vantage point.
Of course.
And they're convinced. I remember I did this one story, and like the victim's family, like they were just convinced that this person was the killer or whatever. And it was just like, there was no talking them out of it, no matter what, you know, because that's what made sense to them. And so like, as an investigator, you almost have to like take a step back, talk to as many people as possible, because the truth is somewhere in between. But I try to keep a healthy distance, although like it's really hard. You get attached to these people.
Right. And I mean, I imagine it would have to be excruciatingly hard to talk to a victim and believe their story, of course, and also have that separation and other information and an outside perspective that like communicating those perspectives, whether it's directly to their face or in the context of what you release in your show, and having it not be aligned with their exact experience and their perception of what had happened. And, you know, we're all, as Kamala Harris would say, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? Like, we're all the product of all of our generational trauma and all of our experiences and everything that came before us that led us to these moments right now. And so that kind of shit will always infiltrate how we perceive our experiences and even the experiences of others. So that shit is very, very hard to navigate because you can't not be human.
I'm curious how Whitney handles that, because like, have you ever encountered a situation like that where you know that the victim is like just not intentionally like misleading you, but that they're just, have you ever witnessed that?
Yeah, those are the hardest interviews we have, working with families, because like you said, they perceive things a certain way. They're grieving, so they are feeling things that are different that may skew what they saw or what they heard or what they know. So we really have to lean hard into facts. And Javier does an excellent job of this. If you haven't listened to Pretend, go do it, because he is strictly fact-based. And he says, like, look, you said this, but this says this. And that's presenting all of the information at once. And I think that's where you have to really lean into those things of, the police report said this, but the family told me this, and let people kind of form their own opinions on the matter, which is how we handle things. Because we don't want to tell a family member that they're wrong.
Right.
And we don't want to say that the police report is wrong. This is just the information that has been given.
And it happens to conflict.
Yeah.
Correct.
As long
How
as
do you
you're
feel
not
about that?
withholding that. Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's just so hard, and you don't want to, again, tell families that they're wrong. I mean, there's a case that we haven't covered yet, but we've been working on for a very long time, where an uncle is suspected in the crime, and it becomes a very fine line, which you can't even really see the line. It's so fine, of how do you introduce this potential suspect without actually identifying him as a family member, where it can affect the investigation, it can affect the family dynamic and cause a lot of problems, but also still share this person's story. It's very complicated, and that's kind of why we are the way we are. Of like that, we're trying to figure this out too, guys. Like we're evolving with this and trying to learn too.
Do you take how do you choose your cases? Like, do you take case suggestions? Do people reach out to you? Do you reach out to people? What's that process like?
Yeah, I've had a lot of, at the beginning, I used to like actively look for the story. Now the problem is sifting through the stories that come in from suggestions. And I get a lot of people like, oh, this guy, he was dating my elderly parent and he's, swindling her. And I get a lot of romance scams and a lot of different stories coming in. But the problem is that it's hard. Just because the story sounds juicy doesn't mean that it's worthy of a story. Like there needs to be some documentation to back up some of these claims. I can't just like run with somebody's story just because they have a good story. Like I have to do the legwork. And a lot of times I end up doing the legwork and nothing comes out of it, right? Because it's... or they're just regular citizens. So I can't, like LaDonna, I don't know if your audience is familiar. I just did this like all summer long. I just did this. I don't even know how many episodes. It was north of 12. It was a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
I did a lot of episodes on this woman, LaDonna Humphrey, she's a true crime podcaster, author, speaker, all this stuff. She has a very polished image. But she also has a 30-year documented history of harassing some of the people that either she's worked with or the people that she's writing about. It's almost like she was accused of creating her own stories, right? And for her, it was clear why I could tell that story, because this is a person that has already put themselves in the public eye. And so they consider themselves a public figure.
And is in the same space that you're in, that we're in as true crime podcasters, undermining the trust of the work that shows like both of yours are out there doing.
Yeah, just because if the things that they're saying about her are true, then she's poisoning the work that we're doing, right? Because then people really can't believe anything, right? But the reason why I felt comfortable pursuing a story like that versus some story that's a listener sends me is that she's a public figure. So the threshold for privacy is a little different for her than it is for like Billy Bob that, is scamming grandma, right? And so, I really have to, there is an endless supply of story ideas. I just have to do enough legwork on each one of those to make sure that it's viable for an actual story. So for me, the problem is like sifting through it, doing the legwork and getting it out. Like that's hard.
Well, is this a good place to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors and then finish out with a couple of really fun little topics and then call it a day?
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. We'll be right back.
Hey, music fans, there are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Atlanta. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. And Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com. Hey, music fans, there are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Atlanta. Zach Brown Band at State Farm Arena. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. And Zach Brown Band at State Farm Arena. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com.
All right, we're back, and we are now going to talk about our dream collaboration. So if you could interview anyone, a detective, a journalist, a witness, a criminal, who would it be and why?
Okay, my answer is not at all related to true crime in any way, shape, or form. But on our show, our monthly episodes of Gossip at the Corpse Cart, we have a segment called Coven Confessions, and every month we have a guest come on, and our producer Andrea pulls anonymous confessions that our listeners have sent into us, so ranging from the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to them, the worst thing they've ever done, which is a great party game with your family. Go around the table and say, what's the worst thing you've ever done? You'll learn a lot. And then we have these guests come on and they cold read these confessions, and Andrea will pull them to be like connected to something in the guest's life, maybe connected to their career or where they're from or, you know, whatever. And we've had so many fucking awesome people on those segments. So let me clarify. I am not saying this to diminish any of the incredible guests that we've had to come on to read those. But my dream guests to come on and do that would be Drew Offwallow and Brittany Broski. I love these women so much. If you're not like a big TikTok girly, then you might not recognize who they are, but they're two creators. Drew Offwallow is Samoan, and she has built this incredible platform on really intersectional feminism, and like she just tears specifically white men the fuck apart on her show and on her channel. And she's built this incredible platform. She's so smart and she's so funny and she's so intuitive and just like a brilliant, brilliant person. And she's doing really impactful work through this like comedic lens that I think is so clever and makes it digestible while also like really taking in some important lessons on racism and misogyny. And it's just fucking brilliant what she's putting out into the world. And I would fucking kill to have her come on and read some of these confessions. And Brittany Broski is someone who like speaks to my autism ADHD heart so deeply. Her show is so funny. It's called The Broski Report. She has it on YouTube and podcasting. And she really just like nerds out about whatever the fuck she wants to talk about on her show. And sometimes she'll get really vulnerable. Sometimes she'll like do dragon sounds. I just like love her show. Listening to her talk like scratches something in my brain because I'm like, oh, your brain and my brain are the same. And I love it. I'm so comforted by her. And yeah, just another like fucking funny, brilliant, vulnerable, awesome, authentic person. I think it would be so fun to have an opportunity to work with either or both of those phenomenal women.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Check them out.
That's awesome.
So Whitney, you got someone?
I don't. So this is so hard because I'm a people person. I want to be with all the people all the time because I'm the extreme extrovert. That's why I have golden retrievers as dogs, because they always want to be with me, and that comforts me. So I don't know. The list is ongoing. Anyone who wants to come talk to me, come, let's just do it.
Yeah, Whitney, I had a hard time with this one too, because I'm not usually like starstruck and I don't really want to meet any famous detective or anything like that. But, you know, while Amanda was talking, I was thinking, you know, Steve Hartman from CBS News, he's a journalist. I don't know if you guys know him. He does all these feel good stories for CBS, and like a long time ago, I used to do these. Everyone had a story segments on CBS, and they were like tear jerkers. I mean, you watch that, and I've always wanted to make people cry while like on my podcast, like, and he always finds like the heart of a story, and like the fact that he could literally talk to anybody and find the story. I just want to like ask him a million questions. Like, how do you do that? Because I think I'm pretty personable, but there are some people that I talk to that I'm just like, I hit a wall and I'm like, yeah, but I do believe everybody has a story.
I love it.
I do wish I could improve on my interview skills because I just get so wrapped up in the conversation that then I forget to ask the questions I meant to ask. And then, you're an hour and a half into your interview and you're like, oh, by the way, I also still have 20 questions to ask you because I've just wasted all of our time together.
No, that's okay. I think that that means that you're a good listener. And if you're listening and not just like asking your questions, you're going to that's where the real good stuff comes from. Like if you just like move on to your next question, you miss like a big opportunity, right? Like, maybe it wasn't what you were planning, but it's definitely that's where the gold is.
Yeah, letting that conversation flow is such a fun and intimate way to like not just create content, but get to know and really connect with the people that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's end it with one last prompt. All right,
I'm so excited about this prompt.
This is called the Desert Island True Crime. So you have one detective, one journalist, one legal expert, and one forensic scientist. It could be real, it could be fictional. Who makes up your team and why? Amanda, you sounded really excited.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay. My detective would be Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs.
All right.
I have complicated hormonal responses to Jodie Foster that guide that decision pretty strongly as well. So that's one. My journalist, Keith fucking Morrison. I have listened to The Thing About Pam so many times. It's a comfort show of mine. I just like want to be his best friend, and I could fucking listen to him read a grocery list and I would be so happy with that. I also just think he's like, he does something really unique in his journalism, and maybe people, are into this and maybe they're not, but his kind of like subtle commentary or reactions or like the way that he can evoke responses out of people in this sort of like grandfatherly, like his voice is so iconic that it's borderline silly. And I feel like it breaks down some barriers for people when they're in conversation with him in a unique way. That's like, I don't know. It just does something for me. I just think he would be so interesting to collaborate with. I didn't choose a legal expert because I didn't, but in terms of like investigation, I would want Lisbeth Salander from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the researcher. Oh. She can find fucking anyone, anything, anywhere. That bitch is a badass. And I also have complicated hormonal feelings about her character and about Rooney Mara in general. And then my scientist pick is Robin Williams' scientist character from Flubber, Professor Philip Brainerd.
Yeah.
Because
that man can make something out of something incredible out of nothing.
Yep.
So that's my fucking
team.
Great
list.
That's my fucking
team. I
want
to watch this movie. I want to watch this.
Watch Flubber. Watch.
Yeah.
You've never seen Flubber?
No. I want to watch the movie with all her team.
Oh, the girl with the dragon tattoo?
No, I'm talking about like all these people. That you just
in
listed.
one movie?
Yeah, in one movie. I want to watch
somebody
that.
has to do a cool supercut edit of like Flubber, the girl with the dragon tattoo, and Silence of the Lambs.
I don't think anybody's ever mashed those up.
No, but somebody creative can make that happen. So
right, this would make it a really excellent TikTok. Just gonna say that. I'm taking note of that. That we're gonna put our dream teams together.
I need that mashup. I need the Flubber dragon tattoo lamb.
Silence
universe.
of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is it's no longer fuck, marry, kill.
No.
This is the new thing.
Yeah,
I love this.
This is it. Yeah.
Silence of the Dragon Flubber.
There you go. Oh man, that's awesome. How about you, Whitney? Did you assemble your dream team?
Yeah, sort of. But now hearing Amanda's, I feel like
know.
mine is like
How do
all
you-
blatantly obvious.
Listen,
How do you
right?
follow that
Not
up,
everybody
right?
can bring
We
the
should let it
unhinged
I
ADHD
know.
genius that I bring to the table. It's
That's
not
right.
a comparison. We all are different. We
Yeah.
have different skills.
That's right.
And I also went all fictional because
love it.
that's just what I had to do.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had to go Jessica Fletcher.
Yeah.
Jessica Fletcher, because duh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, that's Murder, She Wrote. Go
Mhm.
watch
Yeah.
it. Again,
Yeah.
child of the 80s.
Oh,
That's where most of mine come from.
that show is so fucking good.
I'm stuck on my detective between Sherlock Holmes and Morgan Freeman from Seven.
Oh, he was
Again,
on my short list.
watched
Ooh,
that so many
that's a good one.
times as a child.
Yeah.
He's like ingrained in my brain.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
who doesn't like to listen to Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, I love
Also,
that movie.
Angelina
Period.
Jolie in Bone Collector is up there
That's
too.
a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, complicated feelings.
so many complicated feelings. My queer little
Yeah,
heart cannot
Yeah.
take it.
My investigator's not truly an investigator, but she's someone that always wanted to seek out more information and would do the hard things, the hard digs, which is Nancy Drew.
I love that choice.
She was not afraid to go do it herself. And I love that because I am a feminist. So sign me up for all those adventures.
She's like a true crime starter drug, you know?
Honestly,
Right.
A gateway.
if you're a millennial in true crime, you had your Nancy Drew era and
That's
your
right, yeah.
Babysitters Club era and your Boxcar Children
Yes.
era. I feel like
That's
that's
right.
the
Yep.
pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It really is. And then my lawyer or legal expert isn't traditionally in criminal aspects, but I think if he took his tenacity into the criminal realm, he would get some shit done. And that's Harvey Specter from Suits.
Oh, okay.
That's my dream team.
I like it.
I'm over here thinking Josh would pick like Tom Girardi, which if you watch Real Housewives or ever saw Aaron Brockovich,
Yeah.
you know who that is, but he's,
Yeah.
you know, obviously disgraced former lawyer Tom Girardi.
Yeah. Well, Whitney, I thought your lineup was awesome.
Yeah, you
I
have
would
an
also
awesome
like to
lineup.
watch. Yeah, I would totally watch that mashup movie too. So
All right, Javier, don't blow it.
I know. I feel
Pressure's on.
okay. Well, I too went the fictional route
Yes.
because it's so much easier. But my my detective is Adrian Monk from Monk.
Oh, hell yeah.
He was on
I
my short
forget-
list.
Yeah, he's just so neurotic, and I just love that actor. I loved him in Miss Maisel, and I just think he's so like freaking funny. And so he would definitely be my detective. The legal
That's
expert.
a good pick.
And this one might be a deep cut because I don't know how many people watch this, but did you ever watch Boston Legal? And
Yes.
Yes.
Wasn't that awesome? And so my lawyer would be, it was tough to choose, but Denny Crane, which is the William Shatner character.
Oh my
And
God.
I love that show. And if you haven't watched that show, that is such an underrated show.
That
So go
was-
watch it. I don't even know where you could see that. But
That was an era of television, like Boston Legal, fucking like Crossing Jordan, Medium. What else was out? Was it Ally McBeal was out around that
Yeah, yeah,
time?
yeah.
It was like
Yep.
such like the 90s were wild, y'all.
when networks still had good shows. Yeah. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So for journalists, I chose, and I'm cheating here, but just because I just want to see, I just want to work with this guy. I choose Ron Burgundy, you know, Will Ferrell, Anchorman.
Oh, that's
Yes.
great.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Oh, that's a great one.
I love it. I can't
I
believe
just think
nobody
Will
picked Nancy
Ferrell in
Grace.
anything. Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. Yeah. And here, just to make things interesting, my forensic scientist, I chose Walter White from Breaking Bad, even though he's not funny like
Oh,
everybody else is funny.
Fuck
But
yeah.
I mean, that guy has like an
But
answer
he's
for everything.
brilliant.
Yeah. I'm just rewatching
Oh.
Breaking Bad, and there was this episode with him and Jesse, and like I think they were stuck in the desert. Their car battery died, and like Jesse's like, "Come on, Mr. White, why don't you just are you gonna make like a robot or something to get us out of this
Oh, and
situation?"
he
Like,
makes
always had
that generator and they're out there
Yeah.
fucking. That's like one of my favorite
Yeah.
shows of all time.
Yeah.
My husband and I rewatch it almost every year.
It's
We
so
fucking
good.
love it.
It's so good.
It's so good.
That is a
Yeah.
phenomenal pick. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Walter White, baby. Yeah.
Hell
And
yeah.
I just
Like
picked
it.
that just because it's top of mind. I'm watching it now. It's such a good show. I think I've watched it like 3 times.
It's so fucking good, dude. Well done.
Oh, Yeah, I think all of our lineups were pretty good, and I love this. By the way, I think we should make this like an annual tradition. And
I agree.
I think our overlord Josh Hallmark would be so proud of us if we continued this tradition. But it was so cool just to bring us together. We're such three different shows, and if you haven't checked out Wine and Crime or Navigating Advocacy or Pretend,
Please
check
do.
it out, because you're missing out. These are really, really good shows that have been around for a long time. They have huge audiences for a reason, and I think you're going to love it. And I hope that we gave you a small little taste of who we are in this episode. But yeah, go check us out. I all of our info will be down in the show notes. And and from all of us, I hope everyone has a great 2025.
Thank y'all so much. This was a blast. I love it. I'm in every year.
Hell yeah.
I would do this weekly shit on lives. This is too much fun. Thank y'all. Check everybody out.
Yes. Echoing everything that everyone has said. Huge thanks to Josh Hallmark for connecting us in person and, in this opportunity. And to our listeners, we love y'all. We could not do any of this without you, and your support means the world to us. So thank you for helping us close out what, was not an easy year, 2024. And I just want to put positivity, resistance, and strength and community out into the world for 2025. And we are sticking around, and we'll be here with you through all of the bullshit that is to come.
That's right. We're not going away.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you after the new year.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Take care.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.
Creative Babble.